Welcome, my friends, to the first video presentation concerning my recently released book called The Mysteries of A Course in Miracles. Now, a lot of people that read the book think, well, there's really no mystery there. There just says a basic same thing over and over, and that's one of the main criticisms of it. But what people don't realize, especially on the first reading, is that even though it does say some things over and over and repeats it in different words, even in the repetition, there are many subtle teachings inserted that are overlooked on the first reading. And I must admit, the first time I went through the course, I missed quite a bit myself. It wasn't until I made an in-depth study of the course that I realized how much was actually there. So what we're going to do is present several dozen videos going through my entire book, which is called The Mysteries of the Course in Miracles. And we're going to present some very interesting material here that you won't see anywhere else, at least nowhere else I've been able to discover. We're going to start out in the book talking about why one should take the course seriously. In other words, there's a lot of channeled material out there. There's a lot of material claims to be from Jesus or the masters or whatever. And some of it, it can't all be right, but what is there about A Course in Miracles that is different about it, that so many people do take it seriously, including myself? It's definitely comes from a source higher than just a regular mortal, so to speak. The next thing, another thing we'll cover is who actually wrote The Course in Miracles. Helen Schucman was the one that penned it and received the messages, but the messenger appears to be Jesus himself, the same Jesus from the Bible. And this is what most students think, but not all. Some think it could be just a representation of the Christ consciousness or something else. Many fundamentalist Christians think from the devil or demons or something like that. So where did the Course in Miracles actually come from? We'll talk about different ideas on that. And then the basic message of the Course. Basic message of the Course is to wake up. In other words, it tells us that our whole universe and our whole state of being here is a dream. And what we have to do is wake up from the dream. And the Course in Miracles tells us how to wake up. Then another topic we'll go into is God itself or himself, whatever you want to call him. And we're asking the question, what is God according to the Course in Miracles? So that's an interesting subject. What is it? And also, where did God come from? There's hints in the Course that tell us where God actually came from. And we'll go into that. I haven't heard anyone else talk about that. And then it talks a lot about the one Son of God, and there's a big division among various students as to what that means. Is there just one life representing the Son of God, or is there one life with many parts, or are there many sons of God? There's a big dispute as to whether not there is some type of duality in heaven, and the duality in heaven would be represented by many. If there's no duality, then there's just one. There's big arguments going on over that. We'll go into what the Course actually says about it. Another theme in the course that's quite interesting was the separation itself. It tells us that in the beginning, we were all in heaven with God. And then apparently some of us got a little bored or something, and we decided to create something outside of heaven. And God says, no, there's really nothing outside of heaven. So this is impossible. I cannot grant that you do this, but we decided to go ahead anyway. And because we were asking for them possible, the only way to make them possible happen is in a dream state. So we entered a dream state. And the Course tells us that that's basically where we are now. We're in a dream and we need to wake up. And the Course calls this dream a mad idea, and that we need to come to our senses. And then the Course says quite a bit, talks about heaven a lot, but it's on the first reading, the average student won't get much of a grasp about what heaven actually is. So we explore what it says about heaven, and we find it tells us a lot more about what heaven is not than what heaven is. So we have a chapter on what heaven is not. And then we have another one on what heaven is. It tells us that heaven's a place beyond time and space and form and perception. And by the time it gets done telling us what heaven is not, there doesn't seem to be very much that heaven could be. It even tells us that heaven is not a place. So what in the world is it? We go into that. And then it talks a lot about what it calls the real world. And this is interesting because I remember the first time I read it, I thought the real world was, we're just talking about heaven, but that's not the case. The real world is a place in between this earth and heaven. That it's a stepping stone, so to speak, that we advance to before we return to the heavenly spheres. So we go into what the real world really is. And I haven't seen any explanation that's similar to what I give on this. Then we'll go into predeterminism, and a lot of people read the Course. It tells us there's a script that is written, and they think that everything is predetermined. There's one group of students that believe this way, another group of students, another division believes that everything is not predetermined. So what does the Course really say about it? Interestingly enough, yeah, it says there is a script written, but it also tells us there are two scripts. One script is dependable, written by the Holy Spirit and God, and the other script is written by our ego, and it is not predictable at all. And then we go into the mystery of time. That's really fascinating. I found it personally fascinating. And the fact that the Course tells us that in the true reality, there's no past and no future. There is only the present. So the question that arises, if there's only the present and there's no past and future, then why does it talk about the separation as if it happened in the past, and our creation as if it happened in the past, and there was a time before and a time after? How do we reconcile all these things? How do we talk about happenings when there is no time? So time is quite a mystery, and not only a mystery in the Course in A Course in Miracles, but it's a mystery in many different spiritual teachings. Talk about an eternal now, and it's a mystery in a lot of different philosophies. And we talked about that this is a dream state, and we talk about the mysteries of the dream and how we wake up and what it means that we are in a dream. Another interesting topic is reincarnation. Does the Course actually teach it? On first reading, it seems like it doesn't, but then when you read it carefully, it sounds like it does. So let us look into what the Course really says about it, plus some of Helen Schucman's actual notes on reincarnation. And one of the emphasis on the Course is the aspect of salvation, and salvation is merely being awakened to our true identity. And to attain this, we must master forgiveness. And it has a different take on forgiveness than the common idea of it. We'll go into that because you have to, if to understand forgiveness in the Course, you have to understand how it's defined. If you just define it in the normal sense, you may, the student may miss or misunderstand some of the teachings. And a lot of people read the Course and they think that all reason and mental activity is of the ego. But when you study it in detail, you find out that's not right. God himself is a universal mind, and the Course does emphasize reason as something that is positive and not necessarily the ego, because both the ego and us in our true state both use reason, but the ego just uses it in a distorted fashion. And we go into more details on that. And then judgment. It sounds like the Course is totally against judgment, but it isn't. There are two types of judgment talked about in the Course. One aspect of it, it discourages, and the other aspect, it encourages. We'll talk about that. And one of the most interesting things in the Course is what it says about health. It basically tells us that all ill health is caused by just misdirected thinking. That if our thoughts are in the right order, in the right focus, we will have perfect health. And we don't have any need of doctors or medicine or anything. It's a little bit like the teachings of Christian Science on that. So we'll look at that and see how practical it is and see if it's something that we can really apply. After all, it'd be nice if all of us could simply think correctly and have perfect health. And then it talks about freedom. And there's two ways of looking at it. The real freedom, it tells us, is in the mind, in correcting our thinking. And then it goes into talking about creating ourselves. Now, this is interesting in the fact that when it tells us about, it talks about creating ourselves, and that's a mistaken thinking that we did create ourselves. A lot of people do not read this correctly because obviously, if you were not in existence, that which does not exist could not create anything. So, what does it mean about creating ourselves? Because it doesn't make any sense of it. Anyone could even think they created themselves from a time when you did not even exist. If you did not even exist and you had no thought, no emotion, no feeling, no nothing, how could you create yourself? And haven't heard anyone go into an explanation of what creating ourselves according to A Course in Miracles really means. And finally, I go into how the Course in Miracles compares to other spiritual teachings. I spent a good deal of study in what is called the ancient wisdom. And I find that many of my fellow students there just discount the Course in Miracles. And then among the Course in Miracles students, many of them discount the ancient wisdom as well as many other metaphysical teachings and just center on that book. But the Course itself says there are many avenues that can take us, many teachings that are beneficial in that they can take us, lead us back to our source. It is not the only one. It does not claim to be the only one. But what I find about the Course is that it has a vocabulary unique to itself, and you have to understand what it means when it uses various different words. So the Course, we have to apply it as it is written to bring us back to our source. And we have to, how shall I word this? We have to look at it as like a language. The Course in Miracles uses one language. Many other metaphysical teachings uses another language. And they often don't understand each other, even when they're saying the same thing. So what we've discovered here is that the Course in Miracles teaches many of the same things in the same way as other traditions, but it just doesn't seem that way because the language is so different. So we do a little translating and try to harmonize the some of the teachings of the Course in Miracles with other traditions. So that said, let's go into the introduction itself to the Course. We'll be going through the entire book, highlighting the teachings here. Since A Course in Miracles was introduced to the public in 1976, a plethora of writings have sprung up commenting on it and explaining it. A negative spin comes mostly from fundamentalist Christians who are upset that it claims to be a revelation from Jesus, but one that does not fit into the Orthodox interpretation. Thus, they view it as a crafty work of the devil himself, made to lead the elect away from the real Christ. I do not know of any full-length book critical of the Course, but there are many articles, videos, and web pages attacking it. On the other hand, most of the commentary on A Course in Miracles, which is called ACIM for short, is positive. And there are many full-length books, in addition to websites, podcasts, videos, symposium, and study groups, making an attempt to explain to the average reader what the Course is really saying. Now, these authors and students mostly see the Course as a revelation of Christ and fully accept everything therein. The main question they try to answer is, how can we best apply the teachings in our lives? That seems to be the theme of every book I've examined on the Course itself. So basically, writings and comments on the Course come from two camps. On one side, we have those who reject the whole thing out of hand. Then on the other, we have the true believers who accept it all without question and only wish to understand it better. I know of no book delving into the Course where the author sees great values in the writings, but is prepared to take a dispassionate position on the teachings that are controversial and difficult to understand. Furthermore, ACIM covers numerous mysteries and teachings that are not touched upon by writers who are willing to tell us how to apply the Course to have a better life or to awaken. This ignored aspect of the Course needs to be examined, and examined with dispassion and reason rather than merely as an affirmation of a belief system. This book is different in 3 different ways from anything I have seen published to date. First, we will discuss mysteries and teachings from the course that are of high interest to readers, but have basically been ignored by other writers. And 2, instead of presenting the writings from the starting point of total acceptance or rejection, we will take the position of the observer and see how each teaching registers with the internal truth detector, with pure reason, and the course itself. The writings will be accepted at face value unless otherwise stated. The course itself places strong emphasis on reason, telling us that most are suffering from a lack of it. So let's read a first quote here from the course. It says this about reason. You do not realize the whole extent to which the idea of separation has interfered with reason. Reason lies in the other self you have cut off from your awareness, and nothing you have allowed to stay in your awareness is capable of reason. How can the segment of mind devoid of reason understand what reason is, or grasp the information it would give? All sorts of questions may arise in it, but if the basic question stems from reason, it will not ask it. Like all that stems from reason, the basic question is obvious, simple, and remains unasked. But think not that reason could not answer it. So this book will attempt to stay true to the direction of reason, as well as that which is verified by the inner self. Now, the third point here is instead of merely telling readers how to better apply the principles of the course, we will look into what is taught there and sometimes not taught, that many have glossed over or missed completely. Besides, if you want to know how to apply the course to your life, there's nothing better than the course itself to learn to do that. We will leave that aspect to others and move on to the new, the beautiful, and the true, the mysteries of divine thought. So this ends the first presentation here. We will shortly be giving additional ones, and I think you'll find them interesting. And if you want to check out my book, it's on Amazon. You can either get the digital or hard copy there. And I have a number of books there. The best way to search for me is search on Amazon for these 2 words, my name Dewey, D-E-W-E-Y, and the word immortal. And that will bring up some of my books, and click on the author and it'll bring up the books I have on Amazon, including The Mysteries to the Course in Miracles. And you might want to check out some of my other books there also. So we will see you again soon.